All right, let's get into it. Beef brisket for beginners. If you're a beginner and you want to know how to cook brisket, keep watching. This video is for you. Yeah, boy. All right, let's get into it, y'all. What we have here is a full pack of brisket. This is the fat side. You can see right here we have, there's plenty of fat on this brisket. We're not really going to do too much to it. We will cut this little piece off right here. You could leave it on, of course, or you could just cut it off, throw it in your pile for, for your sausage mix. It's got plenty of fat in it. You can see that right here. Plenty of fat. This is a prime brisket, so it's going to be loaded with fat anyway. And, I'm not going to do too much. I'm going to take a little fat off the sides. Take a little bit off both sides, actually. Cut down on a little fat pocket of fat that sits right here. I'm not going to take it off, but I am going to trim it down just a little bit. That kind of holds the brisket together. It kind of holds the point and the flat together. So I'm going to take a little bit of it out, but not much. And again, you don't want to really do too much to these briskets, man. Take a little bit of fat off, give you enough room, for the smoke and heat to penetrate and get around the meat. But other than that, you don't want to do too much. About a 1/4 inch of fat on the fat side, but even with that, I'm not gonna mess with it too much. Everything looks good to me on this one. I got this prime brisket from Sam's. They do carry prime briskets now, and this one right here had a nice little point on a nice little flat. So that's about it. I'm gonna leave it alone, and I'll flip it over and do the other side. Stay tuned. All right, as you can see, I got the flat pointing directly to the camera. A lot of fat on here. But I'm not really going to take a lot of it off at all. I'm not going to mess with too much. I am going to trim this side right here and just kind of open it up a little bit so you can see some of the meat come through. But that's pretty much it. Just a little bit of fat trimming on one side. And that's it. I'm not going to do too much. So I'll cut that back, put that to the side. All right, there's a little bit of fat up here on this point side. I'm going to cut that back a little bit, expose a little bit more of the meat. And if you want, you can cut a lot of this fat off on the point. Because the point has a lot of intermuscular fat, so you're not going to dry it out. But I like to cut it back a little bit. I want all of the meat to be exposed. I want full coverage when it comes to getting the smoke penetration. And there's a little cap of fat right here. I'm really just going to cut it back just a smidget. I'm not trying to take it all off. I'm not trying to dig into the brisket. I just want to pull it back a little bit so I can get the smoke rolling right over that. All right, I'm just going to take it off. As you can see, this kind of fat's not going to render. So you want to cut a little bit of it back, just a little bit, so you can, like I say, so you can get more coverage of smoke. Because that's not going to render. That's not going to render at all. That's hard fat. You can't even use it for sausage, so just throw it away. All right, I've turned the brisket around, and what we have here is the point. Like I say, you want to expose as much of the point as you possibly can. The point has a lot of intermuscular fat, so it's very hard to dry the point out. And so I want to just cut back as much of this fat as I can on this point. I'm not using it for burn ends. I'm going to turn this. I am going to make slices out of this point. So you want to try to take off as much of this fat as you can. All right, right here in the front, you want to take a little knot off of the front of this brisket, right at the tip. And what this is going to do is you're going against the grain. So this is when the brisket is cooked, this is going to help you remember exactly where the grain pattern is going so you can cut against the grain on this brisket once it's cooked. All right, you can see on this side, I've got the point and the flat on this side exposed. I'm going to get some good bark on that side. On the back, you can see this little gap of fat that was sitting right there is gone. Kind of smoothed it on out, come around the back to the point. I've got the meat exposed. I've taken out as much fat as I need to so that I'll get some good slice from the point. And this side right here, I haven't even touched. It looks good. There's no fat over there. I'm not going to do anything to it. The gap of fat that sits right here on the back looks good. I'm not going to touch it. It's about a 1/4 inch of fat. And then that little piece right there, I kind of cut back. That holds the briskets together. So if you take it off, the brisket will be separated from point to flat. And that's it. All right, right here you'll see that I still have striations of fat within the meat. A lot of this is inside the meat. You don't want to take it off. I'll use a jacquard and just go right through it, but there's no need to take it off. That thing right there will go right through that meat, penetrate everything. You'll get your seasonings in there, and everything will be good. Don't go digging into the brisket, taking all that off. It's totally not necessary in order for you to get good bark and all of that good stuff. So, all right, next up is injecting. Totally optional. But if you're going to do competition briskets, you might want to find your good one. You want to start right up here by the point. Just want to work your way down. And I go usually about a half an inch in between. I'm just going to do like a straight pattern, straight down, a half an inch apart. I'm going to work my way down this whole brisket. All right, we finished injecting. We're going to take and rub all of the injection into the brisket. Like, just rub it all in. You want to work it in. You're going to rub all this brisket. You're going to take all this injection off anyway. Anything that's left over on the back side or front side, you're going to wipe it all down because the rub is not going to stick to this brisket injection. So you want to make sure you take it all off after you take the brisket out and start seasoning it. But this brisket is going to sit in the refrigerator overnight, and we'll get back to seasoning it in the morning. All right, now you want to grab some paper towel and you want to take all of this excess injection off the meat. And you want to rub it down real good on all sides because the rub is not going to stick to it. Flip it over, get the fat side, get all of this excess injection off. And you might as well go ahead and switch pans while you're at it because there's going to be so much injection left over because this brisket sat overnight in the refrigerator. So there's going to be a lot of injection, as you can see in this pan, left over. So just rub it all down and we'll go on to the next step. All right, now we're going to slather it down with some mustard. Totally optional. You don't have to use mustard. You can use any kind of cooking spray. Maybe you want to use just olive oil. Doesn't really matter, but I like to use mustard, just a light coat of mustard. It's not going to taste like mustard at all, but it really helps that rub stick to it. It really helps you create a nice little bark. And you just rub it all over on both sides. All right, next up is salt. I'm a firm believer that the first thing that should hit the meat, is salt. Not rub, salt. Salt needs to contact the meat and the fat first because salt is actually going to stick. And it's going to season. A lot of these rubs are full of sugars and paprikas, and if you put too much of that crap on, all it's going to do is cake up your brisket. Please go on with salt first. Salt is the most important ingredient when it comes to cooking brisket. Season it with salt first, and then you can come on top of that with your rub. Light coat of your rub just to enhance the flavor. That's all you want to do. You do not want to cake this rub on. This is just my QQ dust right here, and I'm just gonna go on with a light coat all the way over. I mean, all around this brisket, and that's what you want. All right, and also be sure that you season all the sides while you have the brisket fat side up. Just go ahead and peel back the sides and make sure you get all the sides real good. It's just easy to do it when you're seasoning the brisket with the fat side up. That way, when you flip it over, all you gotta do is worry about seasoning up the top. All right, I flipped the brisket over. I'm gonna go on with the same treatment. Light coat of mustard just on the top, and as you see, I'm not rubbing the sides down. I already got that taken care of. And after you put this mustard on, same approach. We're gonna hit it with some salt first because the salt is gonna dissolve in that meat. And after we come on with this salt, nice little heavy coat on the front of this, on the top of this brisket as well. And then we'll come and follow it up with the rub, of course. And, I mean, you can go a little heavy. You just don't want to cake it on, and you definitely don't want to press it on. You just want to let this rub sit on top of that brisket, let the salt and the sugars, if you have some in your rub, draw out that moisture. And when you get that glazed look on top of that brisket, that's when it's time to go on with the next step. All right, it's glazed over. Now it's jacquard time. All we're going to do is press it all over. We're going to hit it side, front, back, everywhere. We're not going to hit the point because, like I said, the point got enough flavor in it. You don't really have to press this down. And really what I'm doing is I'm pressing the seasonings into the meat, and any kind of little fat pockets or anything like that that's sitting on top of that, these jacquard blades are going to go right through it. When you cook the brisket, you won't see any of that on top of the brisket, so don't get it twisted. And then come back over with a light coat of rub just to cover up some of those jacquard marks, and you're good to go. All right, we got our meat on the pit, and if you notice below, I have a water pan. You can add water in here. You can add apple juice, whatever you want to. But you just want to add a little water pan in this particular pit because you don't want that heat to have direct contact to that meat. You want something to kind of buffer it. And the water will act, and the steam and water will also help that meat absorb a lot more smoke. We're going to keep the pit running between 275 and 300. All right, 4 hours in, no basting, no nothing, just a water pan. And as you can see, we're starting to get some good bark. So we're going to close this lid up, let this thing keep on rocking. and we'll come back out in about 2 hours and check it out. I think I got the pit rocking at about anywhere between 275, 300. All right, now is one of the most important parts is wrap the brisket. I like to use butcher paper. You can use foil, but foil steams the meat too much for me. So I like to use brisket paper. It absorbs all the fat, absorbs all the moisture, and all it does is put it back on the meat where it's supposed to be without messing up your bark. So I go with butcher paper. And you just want to wrap it up as tight as you can, put it right back on the pit. Yeah, boy. All right, now it's time for the great reveal. It's time to cut this brisket. Now look at this butcher paper. You see how it absorbed all the moisture, all of that fat? But what I do is I put it in a pan on a rack, and so all the fat drippings kind of come through that butcher paper, and they don't saturate the meat. They just keep it moist, which is what you want. But man, look at this thing, man. Beautiful. That's what you want to see, man. And you know, this butcher paper, you can also use it to light your fire if you need to later on. But look how moist this brisket is. That's what you're looking for. So let's go ahead and get this thing cut up. Yeah, boy. All right, now it's time for the great reveal. Look at that jiggle. Nice jiggle. So we're going to start cutting it down here on the end piece that we took. Remember, we took that little piece off right there so we'll know how the grain pattern runs on this brisket. And, you know, usually the end pieces dry out a lot. But if you notice, this thing is still juicy and tender, even on that little end piece, man. So you know if you got that right, you got the rest of the brisket right. And I'm just going to cut this thing up, stack it up real nice, and we'll come back with the great reveal. We're going to cut this flat. We're going to cut the point, and look at that. Nice bend on it, good smoke ring. So y'all stay tuned. We're going to cut this brisket up. All right, now it's time to turn that thing around and cut this point. And it's just one slice straight down the middle. You're going to turn it around, and I'm going to show y'all exactly how juicy this thing is, man. Look at that. Without pressing it, you can see the moisture. That thing is super juicy. Wrap it in butcher paper, my friend. Wrap it in butcher paper, not foil. Foil will turn it to pot roast. And then we're just going to slice them up real good, man. So I'm going to slice it up real good right on the cutting board, stack it up, and give y'all a final preview at the end. So stay tuned. Yeah, boy.